So I promise you, nothing that I show you today is going to be an illusion.
I can't believe that this happened.
Oh, James.
The key to mind control.
Normally, when we think about tapping into people's brains, we're like, whoa, hold on a minute.
This podcast is about how the Dutch Secret Service practices on Dutch civilians. Innocent people that are being used like test rabbits. And I'm one of them. My name is Raymond and I'm making this podcast. Mind you. In April 2017, the French secret police forced me to return to Holland, and I left my French house. How this all happened can be heard in next episodes, but for now, episode 1, Mind Control. Before I tell you my personal story with the Dutch secret police, I want to tell you something about the brain and the possibilities to influence it.
It found
Can't
a
you
way
wait?
to seize control of human minds.
Mind control is an understanding for all what you can control with your brain and how your brain can be controlled. Example, to move an artificial arm only with your thoughts. That is mind control. You control the arm with your brain. Or controlling a computer game this way. The nerves in your brain conceal electric currents. As your brain is being read, in reality the electric currents are being read. Those currents can be received by a computer that can register and translate the signals. That is mind control. Reading of the brain and use that to control something. The game industry and the medical world are spending billions of dollars investigating the possibilities. And the military and the secret agencies have high interest in the possibilities. In 2019, an American department of the military with the name DARPA started, together with some universities, projects to develop mind control technologies. Mr. Sanchez is working for DARPA.
My name is Justin Sanchez, and I'm a neurotechnologist. I was at my lab at the University of Miami, and I got a call out of the blue. At the other end of the phone, there was a person that says, "We need you to come immediately to Washington, D.C. and come to DARPA." DARPA is the high-tech research branch of the Pentagon
that develops secret technologies and weapons.
And while I'm at DARPA, we're thinking very deeply about national security.
With large funds, it attracts scientists from universities to work for them. Goal of these so-named N3 teams is to develop non-invasive interfaces able to control the human mind from a distance, without surgery. These by DARPA-funded research projects have fancy names like Brainstorms, the Park Team and Teledyne Team. These last two are focused in research to control the brain with help of ultrasound. Writing ultrasound to neurons and reading them. For a moment I concentrate at one of the projects.
We work on a number of neural interface
Patrick
technologies.
Genzer from Battelle.
So what that means is building a device that can either record and or stimulate the nervous system.
They are doing research on the method to have access to the brain.
I'm recording, I'm decoding thoughts. We use artificial intelligence to decode what's happening in the muscles or in the brain or in nerves.
The Moana research under supervision from Dr. Jacob Robinson.
So when people hear about programs that are designed to build a brain interface, particularly programs funded by the government, people naturally get concerned. Normally, when we think about tapping into people's brains, we're like, whoa, hold on a minute. Like, I don't want to have some kind of surgical implant or microchip or something like that. Can we come up with a non-surgical way, an external device, a helmet, a hat, that would allow us to capture signals from the brain and stimulate the brain as though we were sitting in front of a monitor? So it sounds a little wacky. Is this even possible? And we looked at how we might be able to use magnetic fields and how we might be able to use light Both of these things can penetrate the skull.
As the magnet turns on, the flies are stimulated, so we're working to stimulate their brain using nanoparticles that I've already injected into the flies.
These nanoparticles glue themselves on a neuron and the electrical information can subversively be read and written. With flies and mice it's already possible, and tests with monkeys are under development. In 2022 they want to start with humans. You will understand that information found on the internet is not top secret. We will do it with this public information and extrapolate that in mind to other possible use.
Control a drone or other autonomous vehicles. Stimulate your brain in such a way that you would be able to see as though you had a display in front of you, a heads-up display, so to speak, that would be activating the parts of your brain associated with vision.
So, just by thinking, you can aim a weapon at a target. The machine will do whatever your brain wants.
So in this project, we are going to use non-invasive ultrasonic waves from outside the brain in order to sculpt a virtual lens within the brain tissue itself.
Communication that is untraceable by the opposite party. So projecting spoken words into the mind of the other, with the use of ultrasound and modulation.
Connect to your friends all across the globe through your direct neural interface and kind of explore what that would actually be.
These technologies are being tested in reality, but also other military developments continue. And what can the Secret Service do when they can look into the head of a terrorist? From a distance, with sound waves. If you hear a hard noise or a laughing voice into your head, you can't concentrate or prepare an attack. Likely you will be mad if it continues for a long time. This podcast is about how the Dutch secret agency is using innocent civilians for developing and testing methods and technologies that highly impact their lives. People being used as test rabbits, and I am one of them. In April 2017, I am chased out of my French house by the French secret police, in order by the Dutch AIVD. But hold on, my story will give you a headache. How the Secret Service enters your brain and you can't do anything against it. I will start to tell you how the CIA, before and now, experiments with technologies to enter the brain from a person, in search for brain control. MKUltra was a project from the CIA and DARPA that searched for a way to mind influencing and mind control with drugs and high voltage treatments. Terrible things happened with human experiments. The Dutch radio station VPRO broadcasted on 11 September 2021 about this past.
I can't believe that this happened.
I'll let you hear a small part from old New York Times journalist
The key
Stephen
to
Kinzer,
mind
who
control.
wrote a book about the search for mind control by the CIA.
The CIA went off in this direction, and it began a program called MK Ultra, a highly secret program that ran during all of the 1950s.
During the same period, Dr. Alan Fry discovered the possibility to transmit sound with the help of microwaves. By aiming a strong transmitter at someone's head, he managed to transport 9 hearable words, the numbers 1 to 9. That was in the year 1962. This test person could also hear a buzzing sound and felt a sensation in his arm or other body parts, described as pins and needles. The Air Force Research Laboratory managed to have a patent in 2002, and the Washington Post discovered that tests the Air Force in October 1994 did proved that it was possible to hear full sentences with this technique. And in 2020, the Senate of the USA ordered a large investigation into the problems and complaints the staff from the embassy experienced in Havana, Cuba, and in China. These complaints were serious: loss of memory, nervously, disordered, deperceptive of hearing sounds, buzz, and long-during cognitive problems. What followed was a scientific investigation in where everything was examined and layer for layer excluded. It was not a virus, not psychological complaints, it was not a poison, but most likely, so is concluded in the public part of the report, it was the Dr. Alan Fry technique that hit the staff. It is used to disturb the mind, most likely by another force.
They'd found a way to seize control of human minds.
So it's possible to disturb people with help from a microwave. But it's also possible to transmit hearable words with it. That was already doable 60 years ago, before the computers were powerful, and now in 2022 we are able to look deep into the brain with the help of MRI scan, and we develop smart software. We can use ultrasound, that modulation technique with an unhearable carrier wave and a layer of understandable sound. With that it is possible to transmit spoken word very precise to a target, while someone else does not hear anything from 1 meter away. We know much more about neurotransmitters like dopamine, endorphin, human-like agents that help to transmit the message from the nerves to the brain. If you are able to stimulate the dopamine production with targeted vibration waves, you can train the brain for influences from outside. Like someone that introduces themselves as a person you can trust. We can do so much more nowadays. The Secret Service Organization's goal is to understand the possible threats for the democratic system and to protect state security. In the news coverage about the Dutch airplane MH17, we hear many stories and theories brought in by Russia.
Forces and militia groups from the self-proclaimed Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics.
That changes the course of this airplane disaster. Stories that covers Russians' part in this tragedy places the guilt somewhere else. Ukraine did it, we were not there, we saw another airplane, it's not a Buk missile, that kind of stories. All security organizations do use this technique, influencing the debate, covering up the truth, bringing alternative scenarios into the situation that hinders the real course examination. The Russians do that, the Americans, the Dutch do that too. It is part of the normal work of the agency. Manipulation, framing, changing and disturbing information. And information that are also people. So you can also disturb people by spreading rumors in their surrounding, or the people themselves, influencing their brains. That also is brain control. Say that you can hit terrorists. You read their mind and plans, and then you arrest them before they are able to carry out the mission. But maybe you can also hear them out in such a way that they are not aware of the fact that they are answering questions, as if they are dreaming. Or are they?
It appears that there is a connection between the Dark Lord's mind and your own. Whether he is as yet aware of this connection is for the moment unclear. Pray he remains ignorant.
You mean if he knows about it, then he'll be able to read my mind?
Read it. Control it. Unhinge it.
In my hands an article from the Dutch newspaper NRC, with the head, Secret Service wants to enter the brain. And we're talking about the Dutch secret agency, the AIVD. There are articles in the New York Times, their websites. Mind control can be used as a powerful tool to influence people. That you can force them to do things or not. Maybe not only individuals, but also you can force or manipulate groups of people. If you are able to transmit spoken words into their minds.
I can't believe that this happened.
Not schizophrenic, but able to hear voices. China and America developed new weapons for crowd control with the use of sound waves. Placed at vehicles like cars or ships, and if being used, you find yourself in need of escape. You feel extremely bad. Your brain gets disordered. So the war you can't see is not hearable too. The heat from the fight is no longer to hack computers, it's all about hacking people. And I do not mean the situation with deepfake video or audio, like what happened with the so-called spokesperson from Navalny that misled the Dutch government in a Zoom meeting and in fact was not real. But I mean deepfake with real people. I am being used by the Dutch National Security Agency to try out different methods and technologies like a test rabbit. They disturb my living space, hunt me down and use me. They follow my movements to do their practice training. They forced me to leave my house in France, so I returned to the Netherlands and then they continued their practicing. During these experiments, I learned in practice the methods and techniques they are using, involuntary. By possessing this knowledge and to protect the state secrets, there is permission to use special means against me. The Commission, Control, Intelligence and Security Services sees that there is a permission to act, so my complaints against the Secret Service AIVD are unfounded. Think twice about this construction. They are using holes in the law. There is no escape. As example, so not in reality, they tell you the code to enter the nuclear room, and as a result, you are dangerous because you have this knowledge. Young people, AIVD spies, use me to practice their skills. Under supervision from a teacher. Young women are being trained by a long woman aged 40 with very short hair if she's not wearing a witch. She is instructing and examining the female students. Young men have a teacher too. I see the same people even in different towns. Some of them are very typical, talking into their coat and wearing dark sunglasses. I have descriptions and images from the situations. In the past 4 years, they trained in different locations on me. They perform acts I do not want and never gave permission for, but do that to train themselves to get better. They practice in the town and the suburb areas. On the street or driving a car, at the automatic stairs in the train station, the waiting room in the pharmacy. What they did? Trying to intercept me in my direct surrounding, secretly inject me with a substance in the waiting row like a supermarket, accidentally hit me, to block me, to shoot a chemical substance in my direction, a gas, and also to isolate me by controlling my communication, the phone, mail, internet, apps and the package deliveries. In 2 situations, someone tried to spray me in my neck with a little black spray bottle. I made a report about those situations by the local police. I am not a follower in conspiracy theories. I'm healthy, injected, sporty. I'm helping my neighborhood. I have a small company. I have no disease or paranoia illusions. I have friends, a social life, and I know that this story will raise some concerns. I am a classical trained documentary producer, and I use journalistic principles. That is why I examined this story very carefully. I wrote a soon-to-publish book about my experiences with the secret agency. And all I discovered is researchable by others and published at my webpage. My sources are universities, regular news agencies, and the sources from the military themselves, and my own experiences. The mind control techniques started exactly at September 17, 2019. That day I made very clear to a person that they could not use me to do any work for them. But years before, strange things happened. Several times I had to deal with burglary without a trace, and a very special videotape about the squatters movement during the 80s disappeared. I filed a complaint by the CTIVD. That is the organization that controls the work from the Dutch security agencies, and although mostly all the complaints are not investigated, my complaint was. But they themselves choose what to control and what not. That is of course weird. The end result was already clear before the examination started. You will be disappointed in the end result, let the CTIVD me know, before they started the examination. Complaints against the Dutch Secret Service are always unconstitutional, and mine was also. Someone gave permission to perform exclusive authorities. If the state security is a matter, everything is allowed. I had to read the conclusion like that. It is not unconstitutional what is happening with you. The Chamber Commissioner, Miss Adrie Stehauer, told me latterly, I am not in denial that the Secret Service is using people as test case. You do not have much hinder from it, is it? But from the performed mind control technique in which they are using my brain to perform new interrogation methods with brain transmitters, I experience a lot of serious discomfort. And they are doing that now for more than 2 years.
Ik ben met de CTIVD geweest en ik wil er graag uit. Ja, gaat u gang meneer. Dank u.
The main question for the Secret Service agencies nowadays is how can we manipulate the brain? With what methods? About the Dr. Fry technique I already informed you, there is also another way. If you ever listen to music with a headphone with conduction, you know that vibrations that hit your skull are hearable for you, but not for your direct surrounding. A vibrating tuning fork placed against your head gives the same result. With vibrations, you can also receive sound and spoken words. The sound transports directly to your in-ear. And you have ELF, extreme low frequencies. Elephants are producing those sounds using their large frontal head and their trunk. Sound produced this way can be heard and understood miles away by other elephants. These very low frequencies, from 1 to 50 Hz, can influence the nerve system from people. Depending the frequency, they can result in a very pleasurable or very fearful reaction. Google presents several patents from the original Dutch scientist Hendrikus Loos, describing the sexual arousal capabilities from low-frequency producing technology. And you have the opposite, ultrasound, ultra-high frequencies. By using an ultrasonic layer, you can transport understandable sound like spoken words over a long distance. This technique is available. You can buy commercial products. We now discussed two different techniques. Microwave, like in your microwave heater, and sound waves, the vibrating guitar string as example. Okay, so for now this is all explainable. I brought in a complaint to the CTIVD that is published at their website They took me seriously, many letters and meetings were part of the process. But the end conclusion was that my complaint was not founded, because it was not unconstitutional. But a part in my complaint that is published proves that I have an experience with a technique that was able to let me hear sound that other people could not hear. I was able to capture a sound with a microphone in my house. The sound that I'll let you hear now As a result of it, my whole head vibrates together with my spine in the same rhythm. This sounds like the sound of thunder in the distance, or a heavy car that is passing by, but it is not the case. These are low frequencies with a pulsing beat. I'll let you hear another moment, recorded in my house. The last part is powerful, but almost unhearable, being in the 24-27 Hz. That vibration, that low frequency, was in the beginning so strong that objects in my house started to vibrate too. It is not car traffic, these are sound waves that hit me. At the same moment I can hear a high-pitched sound in my head. It looks like I'm under electricity. My head is getting hot. I feel a sensation of the needles. My nerves are being tickled in such a way that my brain receives the signal. My muscle control is influenced. I drop things out of my hands. With this combined technique, microwaves and sound waves, I am able to receive understandable sound. I can hear that someone is asking questions to me. So someone from distance is able to speak, and I can precisely hear if it is a man or a woman. The voice soundscape is complete. But it's not the Russians. I'm being used by the Dutch AIVD, who develop new mind control techniques and trying to enhance them. It sounds unreal, and that is what I say to myself. It is unbelievable but true. I'm fully aware and can't pass reality. It happens. I can't convince everyone, but I will give you a fair situation. I can hear the voice with intonation, rhythm, sound colorization, and I can even imagine the voice's age. These are real persons. With this technique, targeted to a person, questions are being asked to a target. I kept a diary during the last 2 years and wrote very precise all that I could hear and noted exactly the sentences and questions they asked me. That is all I can do now. In this and following podcasts, I will read now and then a small fragment out of it. And try to keep an open mind. I know it's difficult. Mind you. Diary, Part 1. January 2020 in my house. I am in my bed and I feel vibrations. Suddenly I hear a man voice. He introduces himself with a name and a rank. An interrogation starts about a demonstration in Amsterdam in the beginning of the 80s. During that time I lived in a squatter's house, like many others. During the moment the house was dismantled, I followed a protest against the landlord with the name Hans. With clear volume and intonation, I was able to receive a voice, and he is asking me questions. Voice. De Blaaskop. Who was the leader? You were there during the moment. I gave in return answers to his questions. I tell him that I indeed walked with the protest, but left before the things went out of control. This was a real questionnaire. The voice asks, I answer. I do that to solve the situation. I think it will be over if I comply. This Hans was a criminal and had criminal friends and was murdered decades later. I read it in the newspaper. This situation with the demonstration was more than 40 years ago. It's absolutely not something that plays a role in my life. I could not really help either, but anyway, the man told me that I somehow helped him. He thanked me and said that they are continuing the research. A minute later, his voice returned and said that I was free from prosecution. Another part of my diary. Part 2. 20 May 2020. This night the vibrations in my bed and the low nose were so strong that my right leg calf jumped into a cramp. I never experienced the vibrations and shocks so powerful before. I curled my toes to my feet and scream out loud in pain. In loud vocals I say, fuck. This could also happen with my heart, also a big muscle. Bastards. That is being heard. A little later, a voice in my head says, is that also possible? I didn't know that. But before you die, tell me if this is truth. You have killed Hans. Confess it to me. This murder case on this criminal landlord Hans was something they tried to blackmail me with, put pressure on me with. And as I knew I was not involved, I thought they will finally find out and leave me alone. Strange fact is that normally murder cases are not in the interest of the security agency. It's something for the police. The security agency is tied to laws and regulations. They are not allowed to act illegally. But if they run people, criminals they can put pressure on, the dirty work can be done. And they remain clean. For more than a year, they confronted me in many ways with this murder and asked questions. But they had no result because I had nothing to do with it. I even went to the police and told them about these questions and the murder at Hans. I have nothing to hide and therefore I can't be blackmailed. Diary. Part 3. 21 November 2020. Time 4 o'clock. Post office. I'm fetching a radio measure instrument, the HF35C, at the post office. They emailed me that it had arrived. Suddenly a man stands behind me with the following text. We know that you did it. Yes, you did it, Raymond. There is no need to deny it. It happened a long time ago and you have put it aside. We do not find it awful, but you should not turn around it. Diary, Part 4. October 2020, in my house. Voice. You did it. We are going to force you more. You are more afraid for COVID than for us. Raymond, you can hear me. Raymond, it's crazy or suicide. We tried to scoop you up, but we failed to do so, because you won't listen. We are going to make you ill, because honey and listening does not work. We are going to use low frequencies. You are going to work for us, without payment. We lost a lot of money on you. Diary, Part 5. 19 February 2021, Eindhoven. I am with a friend and decide to stay for the night to be safe for the COVID night clock. Around 10 o'clock in the evening, I go outside to reach for my sleeping bag and belongings in my car. Pitch dark outside. The house is projected in an area with small walls, gardens, parked cars and bicycles. When I return to the parking spot near the house, with in my arms my belongings, I hear in clear sound the following. A man voice. Raymond, we are also here. We think you are dangerous. At the same time, I hear in real sound the typical sound of a small wine bottle that is opened. While I continue my way to the house, with all my belongings in my arms, I experience a strange feeling in my mouth. My teeth, an irritating sensation. I smell a strange substance. It is gas that is blown to me with pressure. In my bed I am more sensitive for vibrations again. And when they arrive I can hear a voice that is calling out my name. Extremely crisp, with full intonation, color of sound, I hear the following in my head. Voice. Raymond. Raymond. I will be straight and direct. Do you steal or have you ever stolen now or before? I do not answer. I do not know if I gave an answer in my half-conscious. The next day, on a different location, they succeeded also to make contact with me and ask me questions. And during the 3 following days, I encounter difficulties breathing during my walks, pain in my lungs. With this technique, questions are asked in the middle of the night, an interrogation. The low frequencies hit my spine and skull and so make contact with my brain. That produces neurotransmitters and create a state where I can receive the spoken word. The secret agency lets me secretly inhale a gas that functions as an intermediary that boosts my sensibility for vibrations. I am being used for years now by the secret agency, and all my complaints about the matter are broken. They improved this interrogation technique during the last 2 years by asking me questions during the rapid eye movement phase in my sleep and by lowering the volume from questions asked over a period in time that lays far behind me. Diary, Part 6, 17 November 2020. This night again, vibrations in different low frequencies and sexual stimulation. After that, a discussion, very low in volume, almost impossible for me to recall. By pretending sleep and controlling my mind, I am able to reconstruct the following. I hear a voice telling me a story. Voice. She enters your bed, she is 18 years old, completely naked, and she is laying in the bed next to you. Now a dream unfollowed about the sniper with the gun. His rifle, the bullets, how he can hold the gun. I also see images, blue ammunition. He tells me what type it is, with a code and letters. BXF12 or something. He is asking me questions and I answer, but I have no knowledge about the matter. If I want to kill someone, something about death. It is low in my conscious and I remember asking him for a contract. I want a contract, he answers. It is a training, but not for you. You are too old, but you will be a good one. Your reflexes are very fast. This is a reveal for me. They confirm that the goal is training. Am I being used to optimize their train technique? Am I also being used by the military secret service? There are 2 kinds of questions. The real-life questions that are in the moment, actual, and the questions that seem to be automated. They pass in a loop. The order is not changing, and after some months, I already knew the next question. By that loop, little mistakes pass also every time. Like someone that has difficulties pronouncing my last name. And with this question. When did you receive your first period? Now I make use of the little faults the secret agency makes. Some questions being asked 1,000 times. Always the same question. Just general personal things that played many years ago. Friends, holidays, school time. The question starts with, there is no need to answer, but may I ask you a question? But mostly they pass this formality and just place the question. Every time the same question. 10,000 repetitions. It is torture. Now I will read some parts from my diary. It is a collection from the last 2 years. Not in this particular order, and originally not combined. Voice. Hey, contact. You heard us? Don't pretend that you can't hear us. We want you to think on K. Raymond, give it up now. Try to concentrate. I asked you something. So you are telling me with dry eyes that, asshole, you're going to fulfill orders from us without payment. What do you think about Mr. Wilders? Give it up. You have no proof. You can't change anything. Accept your destiny. Accept your destiny? If you do not step in immediately, you are beaten up. Raymond, it's crazy or suicide. I am a victim of the mind control experiment operations performed by the Dutch secret agency that started at 17 September 2019 and is practiced and enhanced with me as test figure. I do not want to do the task they force me to. They themselves do not want to fulfill their job either. Puppets on a chain. I have no choice in their eyes. Or I am being used as a living test rabbit, or I will perform things they ask me to do, things a normal person would not do. The moment they understood my position, they continued by exploiting me. Abuse me, I call it. Next time, part 2 from the podcast Mind You. Techniek, sex, and how it started.
Oh, James.
Vibrations that influence your brain, that is neurotechnology. In the Netherlands, specialists are capable to research the possibilities for brain and computer interfaces. And scientists that research the brain during your sleep. It looks like that during the REM phase in your sleep, you unwillingly answer questions thrown at you. And if you are in sexual arousal, you have even less blockades. That and more. Next episode. Mind You.
It found a way to seize control of human minds with the stakes that high. The loss of a few lives or even a few hundred lives would seem like a very small price to pay. The line between reality and fantasy, they began to think that what screenwriters and novelists could imagine, any scientist could make real. Well, we always, as a nation, abide by ethics and morality and laws, but there have to come some very extreme circumstances where temporarily we have to leave that behind.